When you call an LLM, it looks like you are sending text, but what you are actually sending is compute. Every token you send, every token you get back, is work that someone's GPU has to do. And that work shows up in your bill, in your latency, in everything. Most engineers think about LLMs in terms of words, or characters or messages. But the model doesn't see any of that. The model sees tokens. Tokens are what you actually pay for. Tokens decide how fast your application runs. Not words, not messages. Tokens. In this video, we'll cover what tokens actually are, why they cost what they cost, the journey a token takes when you call an LLM, and how to spend tokens efficiently so your bills stay predictable as you scale. Let's get started. So what is a token actually? The best way to see it is to use a tokenizer. It's a tool that takes any piece of text and shows you how the model splits it into tokens. Let me type something simple. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. 9 words. If tokens were words, we would expect 9 tokens. About 9, almost 1 token per second. Now try this. 1 word, tokenizationally. How many tokens do you think? 1? It is 1 word. 5 from a single word. Because the model has never seen tokenizationally enough times to give it a dedicated token. So it breaks the word into pieces it does know. Tokenization alley. Each piece costs you separately. Okay, now the one that always surprises a lot of people. Hey, UUID. This is one ID, one thing. 20 tokens from one ID. The model looks at these random characters and dashes and has no efficient way to compress them. Every UUID in your prompt is 20 tokens of tax. Now imagine your retrieval layer pulls in 5 documents, each with a few UUIDs at the top. That is 100 tokens of pure metadata before you have said anything useful. One more. Here is a single line of Python. Looks like one line of code. Count the characters, maybe 40. 15 tokens for one line. Code is dense in tokens because every underscore, every colon, every bracket, every asterisk gets counted. And this is why pasting a stack trace into a prompt costs you so much more than pasting the same length of English. The model is not reading the meaning. It is counting symbols. So here is the core idea, and we are going to come back to it over and over in this video. Words are a human unit. Characters are a transport unit. Tokens are the model's compute unit. And compute is what you pay for. What looks short to you can be long to the model. What looks long can be surprisingly short. So if you are building anything with LLMs, you have to learn to look at your prompts the way the model looks at them. In tokens, not in words. Okay, so why does tokenization work this way? Why is there is 1 token, but tokenizationally is 5? The short answer is tokenizers are learned. Someone takes a huge pile of text and runs an algorithm that figures out which patterns show up most often. The common stuff, words like the, and is, and, those get their own token because they show up everywhere. So giving them a short representation saves a lot of compute later. Rare words don't get that treatment. There is no token for tokenizationally because the algorithm never saw it enough times to justify 1. So when you actually use that word, the tokenizer falls back to breaking it into smaller, more common chunks. Pieces it does have tokens for. And the technical name for this is byte pair encoding, or BPE. You don't need to remember the name BPE, but just remember the rule. Common patterns are cheap, rare patterns are expensive, and the tokenizer decides what counts as common based on what it was trained on, which is mostly English text from the internet. Now, this has real consequences for how you build. So 3 things I want you to remember. 1. Different models have different tokenizers. Claude's tokenizer is not the same as GPT-4's. Llama's is different again. The same exact sentence will count differently on each one. And we'll see this live later in the video. Number 2, non-English text usually tokenizes worse. For example, languages like Hindi, Mandarin, Arabic, these often take 2 to 3 times more tokens per characters than English. So if you are building for a global audience, your bill in some languages is fundamentally higher. Number 3, code, logs, JSON, UUIDs, anything with lots of punctuation and random looking strings, these all explode the token count. Pasting a stack trace into prompt costs way more than pasting the same amount of English prose. So the operational lesson is simple. What looks short to you can be long to the model. and what looks long can be short. You can't eyeball it. You have to measure. So we know tokens are the unit of compute. But what actually happens when you make an API call? When your code calls a model like Claude or GPT-4, where does that request actually go? What runs it? What is actually happening between you hitting enter and the response showing up? Let's trace it. We'll also pick up a few terms you'll see come up over and over when working with LLMs. Inference, Prefill, Decode, and context window. Let's start with inference. And you'll hear this constantly in LLM work. So let's pin it down. There are two phases in a model's life. Training is when the model learns. People take billions of pages of text, run them through huge clusters of GPUs over months, and end up with a model that has learned patterns from all that data. Training happens once. It costs tens of millions of dollars. It takes months of GPU time. Inference is when the model runs. Every time you call the API, every time someone types a message to ChatGPT, every time your application sends a prompt, that's an inference. The model is just executing. It is using what it learned, not learning anything new. Training is a one-time capital expense. Inference is what you pay for every single day, on every single request. So when we talk about cost, latency, and scaling, we are always talking about inference. Training is somebody else's problem. Okay, so what happens during inference? When you call client.chat.completions.create, what physically happens? It's 5 steps. Step 1, tokenization. Your string of text hits the provider's server, and the first thing they do is to run it through the tokenizer. The text becomes a sequence of token IDs. Numbers. Hello world might become 15496 and 11 and 1917. That's what the model actually consumes, not text, numbers. Then comes embedding. Each token ID gets mapped to a high-dimensional vector, a list of a few thousand numbers. And this is how the model represents meaning internally. You don't need the math here. Just know that the tokens gets turned into a list of numbers, and those numbers encode what the word means based on the context around it. Step 3 is prefill. This is what matters, so pay attention. Prefill is when the model reads your entire input prompt all at once. All the tokens go through the model in parallel, building up the internal state the model needs to start generating a response. Prefill is fast because it's parallel. The model is doing thousands of computations at the same time on different tokens. The time you wait between hitting enter and seeing the first character of the response come back, that is mostly prefill time. Step 4 is decode. This is the other important word. Decode is when the model generates the response. But here's the catch. The model can only generate one token at a time. Each new token depends on all the previous ones. So decode is sequential. You cannot parallelize it. And every single output token requires a full pass through the model. Hundreds of billions of parameters firing, all to produce one more token. Then it does it again for the next token, and again, until the response is complete. Finally, the step 5 is detokenization. The output token IDs get mapped back to text and streamed to your client. This part is fast and basically free. So why am I making you sit through this? Because input and output tokens are handled very differently inside an LLM. Input tokens are processed in parallel in one shot during prefill. Output tokens are processed one at a time sequentially during decode. And that is why output tokens cost 3 to 5 times more than input tokens on most providers. It's not a pricing decision, it's a physics decision. Generating tokens is fundamentally slower and fundamentally more expensive than reading them. This is also why two API calls that look identical to your user can take wildly different amounts of time. One call is a short question with a short answer. The other has a 5,000 token document stuffed into the prompt and asks for a long answer. To the user, it looks the same chat box, same button. But to the GPU, these are completely different workloads. One is cheap, one is not. Now, before we talk about cost, let me show you something. 3 common LLM problems that everyone blames on the model, but they are actually token problems. Take the most common one. The model forgets a constraint. You wrote a clear system prompt, worked perfectly in testing. Then in production, it sometimes ignores the rule. What happened? You probably crowded the context. Your system prompt is at the top. Then you added long conversation history. Then you stuffed in 5 retrieved documents. By the time the model is generating its response, the original instruction is buried thousands of tokens earlier. Attention dilutes. The instruction is still technically there, but is no longer salient. The same pattern explains hallucination, where you didn't spend tokens on grounding, and inconsistency, where context bloat dilutes the relevant signal. So here is the takeaway. Same pattern, same fix. When models forget, hallucinate, or behave inconsistently, don't blame the model first. Audit your context. Ask what is actually in there. Ask if each token is earning its place. Spend your tokens on purpose. Now coming back to cost. Every LLM has two prices. The price to read your input and the price to generate the output. And outputs cost 3 to 5 times more per token than inputs. Why? Because of Decode. Remember, every output token is a full forward pass through the model, one at a time. Inputs get processed in parallel during prefill. Outputs are slow and sequential. And that's where the cost asymmetry comes from. Which means verbosity is not a style choice. It's a burn rate. A model that answers in 2 paragraphs when one sentence would do is costing you 3 to 5 times more per response. So when you are building, decide the answer shape yourself. Set max tokens. Use structured outputs. Don't just let the model write whatever length it wants. So now you know where the money goes. The real question is what to do about it. And there are 4 levers here, and most teams pull none of them. Let's start with the simplest one. Trim what you send. Your system prompt goes out on every single request. So every word you leave in there is a tax you pay again and again. A prompt that is twice as long is not a one-time cost. It is double the input bill on every call, forever. Go through it and cut anything the model does not actually need. And on the output side, cap max tokens to the smallest number that still works. Every token you don't generate is money saved. Second, and this is one of the biggest hidden cost levers in the entire LLM stack, prefix caching. Most engineers don't even know this exists. The teams that use it often cut cost by 80 to 90%. Here's the idea. Before the model generates a single token, it has to read your entire prompt and do the prefill work. If your system prompt is long, that prefill is expensive. And if you send the same system prompt on every request, you're paying for that same work again and again. Prefix caching stops that waste. The first time the provider processes your prompt, it stores the prefill state. On your next request, if the start of the prompt matches, it skips the recompute and loads the cache state instead. It only processes the new part, your actual user input. The cache tokens are not free, but they are close. They are billed at small fraction of normal input price. So send the same long prompt twice, and from the second call onward, it is almost all savings. Anthropic supports it, OpenAI supports it, but most teams still are not using it properly. If your app keeps sending a long system prompt, this is one of the easiest wins you will ever get. Third lever is model tiering. Not every request needs your most expensive model. Think about what you are actually asking. Simple classification, pulling a field out of some text, routing a request, a short summary. That kind of work runs perfectly well on a smaller, cheaper model. You only need the frontier model for the hard reasoning. You already know this pattern. It's the same idea as a CPU cache hierarchy. You don't go to main memory for every operation, because most of the time a faster, cheaper layer already has what you need. Same thing here. You don't reach for Opus or GPT-5 on every request. You match the model to the difficulty of the task. And the fourth lever here is the one almost nobody checks. The same model can cost wildly different amounts depending on who is serving it. For example, take Llama 3.3. It's an open weights model, so it's not tied to one company. Together AI, Fireworks, Grok, Deep Infra, and others all host it. Same weight, same model, same outputs. But the price per token and the latency can be very different from one provider to the next. So picking a model is only half the decision. You also have to pick the provider running it. But most teams wire up one SDK on day one, never look at it again, and quietly overpay for months. So now you have a real question. Same model, different inference providers, big price gap, big speed gap. Who has the time to go shop providers for every model, integrate 5 different APIs, normalize all the responses, handle 5 different error formats? Most teams don't. They pick one provider and they overpay, quietly for months. Or you use a layer that has already done all of that work. And that's the sponsor of today's video. OpenRouter is one API for over 300 models across every major provider. It speaks the OpenAI chat completion schema. So you don't even need a new SDK. Same client library as you already use. Just point it at OpenRouter's base URL, change one string, and you are using Claude or DeepSeek or Llama or anything else. Let me show you how. Before we run anything, we need to get set up. Go to openrouter.ai and hit Get API Key. Set an expiration date, copy the key, and drop it into your .env file. That is the whole thing. Now the script. It's about 50 lines. All it does is take a chunk of Python code and ask an LLM to summarize it in one sentence. And here's the part I want you to notice. It uses the standard OpenAI client library. The one thing we changed here is the base URL. Instead of pointing at OpenAI, it points at OpenRouter. That is the one change. Everything else is the code you have already written 100 times. So now we run it, and the only line that changes between runs is the model string. Everything else stays exactly the same. Run 1 is Cloud Sonnet. That is our baseline. Now keep an eye on the input token count and the cost. Run 2, GPT-4o. Same code going in, but look, a different input token count. Same text, different tokenizer, different bill. And this is not a one-off. This is happening on every single LLM call your backend makes. Most engineers never even look at it. Run 3, DeepSeek v3.2. Now look at the cost. It's a fraction of what Claude charged. Frontier quality output and significantly cheaper. Now one thing worth knowing here. OpenRouter passes provider pricing straight through. There is no per token markup added on top. Run 4 is Llama 3.370b with the floor suffix. And that suffix is an instruction to OpenRouter. It says, give me the cheapest provider currently running this model. Watch the provider field and the cost line when this runs. Run 5, same model, but now nitro suffix. Different provider this time, same weights, but instead of cheapest, OpenRouter routes to the fastest one available. Over thousands of requests a day, and that latency difference is a real win. So step back and look at what just happened. Same 50 lines, one string changing, 3 frontier models and 2 routing variants, all through one API. And that is what unified access actually means. One last thing worth knowing. You can also set fallback chains, primary model, backup model, second backup. So if your primary provider has an outage at 2 in the morning, your traffic shifts mid-flight. Your users never see it. You sleep through it. And on the privacy side, OpenRouter has 0 data retention providers if you need them. And they don't log your prompts or response by default. So you are not trading privacy for convenience. Link is in the description, free credits to get started. The docs are at openrouter.ai/docs. If you are building anything serious with LLMs, this is the layer you might want. You see, at the core, all of these are choices about which tokens you'll pay to include and which tokens you'll refuse to carry. Engineers who build with this in mind build systems that scale. Their builds stay predictable. Latency stays tight. The application keeps working as they grow. Engineers who don't eventually learn it the hard way. In an incident review where the root cause turns out to be that they spend their compute budget on punctuation, IDs, and blobs. If this video helped you, drop a like, subscribe for more first principles content on how AI systems actually work. And if you want to go deeper on system design and AI infrastructure and cybersecurity, do check out ByteMonk Academy, link in the description. I'll see you in the next one.